We have here something very interesting. Or maybe it really isn't all that interesting. Well, we have a message from Google. And we know that Google knows everything. If you want to know something, go to Google, right? You want to know who somebody is. Google can tell you all about that person and even more than you want to know. So I said, isn't that something? So I put my own name in there. Who am I? And came right back. There's everything here. Name, age, current address here, phone, relatives, and even associates. Because that means who do you hang around with or something. I don't know, probably Father Neil's name is in there as one of my associates here. Well, our gospel today teaches us who Jesus is. You recall in the gospel that Jesus is just beginning his public life, his teaching. And he's in the local synagogue. He teaches, and then he cures a man with an evil spirit. He says to him, "Come out of him." And the evil spirit comes out. And with that, the people were amazed. Who is this? Who is this man? Even the evil spirits seem to obey him. Who is this? Now this year, we're going to be hearing from the Gospel of Mark. And in the Gospel of Mark teaches that the real identity of Jesus, who Jesus was, really wasn't understood until after his suffering, his death, and his rising from the dead. Only then did people really understand. Even the apostles didn't seem to really get who Jesus was. And you can't blame them. Wasn't their fault. It's the way God chose to teach us. Part of God's plan. And even our friends at Google couldn't have helped them. This is the way God wanted it. Now, the Gospel of Mark may well have been written for the early Christians in Rome. And the followers of Christ there were suffering a great and terrible persecution. They were fed to wild beasts, were crucified, and then set on fire. The gospel teaches that all followers of Christ may experience great difficulty at times being faithful to Christ. Now, we may not be fed wild animals or set on fire, but it doesn't mean that keeping our faith in Christ is always going to be easy. Maybe an example will help. Roberta is a young mother of 3 children. And for quite a few years now, she's been suffering from a very serious disease. And last fall, it put her in the hospital. And she's still there. Her main concern is that she knows she needs to be home with her children. That's where she needs to be, not in the hospital. She told me, I believe that God's in charge and that God's going to take care of me. But sometimes it's so difficult. I wonder, when's this going to end? What is going to happen to my children? Why is God doing that? Why is God doing this? And maybe in our lifetime we too might have asked the same question. Why is God doing this? Why is God allowing this? Let's stop for a minute and just ask ourselves, was there a time when I asked the same question? Why is God doing this? Sometimes keeping our faith in Christ can seem almost impossible. It brings us right back to the first question. Who is this man, Jesus? Well, we know the answer. Jesus is the Son of God. But we also want to make sure that we keep our hearts and our minds open to learn more about who this man is. What does God want to teach us? And sometimes we learn the most in the difficulties of our lives. We learn most when we're hurting the most. That's what Roberta is learning now in her difficulties. This gospel also teaches us that Jesus really redefined exactly what true worship of God is. Now, notice what happened that day. Jesus not only prayed in that synagogue, but he also cured the sick man, didn't he? He prayed, but he cured. It tells us our prayers alone should be matched with action. We not only pray, but then we go out and we do something to help those around us. Do something for those in need. And to do that, we go to family, those at work, those who are sick, people like Roberta. She told me that on that Christmas day, she still wasn't home with her family. The nurses on the floor in her unit, they had taken up a collection and bought all kinds of gifts for her kids. And then they came in and decorated the hospital room where her children were going to be celebrating Christmas with their mother. And Roberta was just amazed that they would do this. That my faith in God was renewed. And all of us have the opportunity, probably each day, to help renew someone's faith in God by what we do. So as we get ready now to share in the body and blood of Christ, let's ask our God for a couple of things. Two things. First of all, let's ask God to keep our minds and hearts open so that we can always be learning more about who is this man, Jesus. And secondly, to help us combine our prayers with helping those around us, especially those who are most in need.